Hello and welcome to a special midweek edition of the Total Saints podcast. We are the weekly Saints podcast, your home for all things Southampton Football Club. And this podcast is being live streamed on YouTube, Facebook, X, and on Twitch. So good evening if you're watching live. Our podcast is supported by our loyal Patreon community. Without you, we couldn't make the show each week. So thank you as always. Coming up on the podcast tonight, as far as Easter weekends go, it wasn't the best. Saints conceding in the 97th minute at Ipswich meant a 3-2 defeat at Portman Road yesterday. Plenty of talking points for the chaps tonight. The games come thick and fast this month, and it's Blackburn away on Saturday, so we'll have a little look ahead to that one later. And away from the depressing results on the pitch, it looks like we're going to be on the hunt for a new director of football again. We'll get the latest on that soon. My name is Martin Stark, and joining me this evening are Steve Grant, the owner of Saints Web, Alfie House, who is senior Southampton reporter at the Daily Echo, and Glen is writer of the blog League One -10. Underpinned by our TSP patrons, this is episode 271 of the Total Saints podcast. Now, as always, we start with a big shout to our Patreon community because their monthly contributions support our show. There are 4 tiers ranging from £5 to £20 per month. And aside from supporting the podcast, each of the tiers has different perks. There's access to an ad-free version of the pod. There's some exclusive TSP t-shirts that we do. There's the FPL, and you get access to the events and much, much more. Now, if you want to get involved in supporting TSP each month, just head over to patreon.com/Total Saints podcast for more details. All the links are in the podcast show notes and the YouTube description. Now, it was about a month ago that we got wind Manchester United were in for Director of Football Jason Wilcox, and it seems there was some truth in the rumours, and reports say that Wilcox has resigned his position. An interesting distraction during the game yesterday. Alfie, I'm obviously going to come to you first. I know you've been talking and writing about this all day. What do we know at the moment? What is the latest on this?
Yeah, well, I mean, just what you want 15 minutes before the biggest game of the season. Somebody breaking story about your director of football leaving the club, and then getting the first notification about a potential resignation during the game as well, just to sort of really put the cherry on top. What we know at the moment is that Man United have finally made their official approach for Jason Wilcox. They offered about a year's salary as a compensation fee for him to start working immediately. He has a 12-month notice period, so if they don't agree to a deal, then he'll have to wait 12 months to start working on gardening leave. That is whether he has resigned or not. At the moment, it seems very much like an open secret that he probably has resigned, but the club have yet to officially confirm that. But yeah, so it looks like Saints probably going to be the director of football in the summer. He's only been here for 9 months, so Man United felt that their offer was fair enough. They felt that it was they approached it properly. Saints disagree. Saints felt the timing of it is not quite right. It's the start of a run in. The money, it's not a huge amount to a club like Southampton. So I think they're open to negotiating. They're open to allowing Jason Wilcox to work with Man United as soon as possible, as soon as they need him. But they're going to do it on their terms, and they're going to have a higher figure pushed. We also had a report late in the night that Liverpool were apparently going for Jason Wilcox, but I was informed at the time, and I think it's since been said that just wasn't true or wasn't right for whatever reason. So, yeah, a little bit chaotic, and for me, it really sort of marred what was an exciting game because I was really looking forward to the biggest game of the season, as I said, and then 15 minutes before it, I'm my head down in my laptop for most of the first half, trying to work out exactly what's going on. But yeah, a little bit of a blow for Saints for sure.
I mean, it's not new news, is it, Steve? As I said at the start, we kind of spoke about this a month ago, but as soon as those rumours were there, we kind of knew that this would come and at some point there'd be an official bid. A few people questioning perhaps the timing and why they didn't wait until the end of the season, and that's going to be a bit of a sticking point by the looks of it.
I mean, I think from United's perspective, the timing is kind of about right because you want somebody in before the end of the season so that they can kind of hit the ground running in the summer when the transfer window opens. Because I mean, everybody watches the news and probably pays a vague bit of attention to what's going on in the Premier League, but Man United are a complete mess, and so he's got a hell of a job on his hands as and when he does eventually take up his role there. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, that the strength of 9 months' work with us and the academy work at City has been enough to prompt United into wanting to get Wilcox in. this early, when I mean they could probably have had the pick of a number of other people in similar roles at Premier League clubs who have kind of done the business at a much higher level. But I mean they've obviously seen something they liked, and obviously got the responses back that they liked when they were very much not tapping him up through the media 6 weeks ago. So yeah, I mean it is what it is, but I mean I think this sort of thing, there are a lot of people within the game with similar sort of ideologies as Wilcox and similar working methods, and it's now down to the board to find a replacement who fits the bill. And I mean, there's nothing to say that whoever comes in can't do a better job. So yeah, we'll see.
To add to that, Steve, well, one obvious link is that Manchester United's new CEO, Omar Barada, worked with Jason Wilcox for a number of years at Man City. So it's a case of the devil you know, I suppose. So
you'd like to think, Glenn, that the club would have somebody lined up when these rumours broke 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, and actually they would probably have a shortlist and know who they want to get in. It's just that whichever league we're going to be in next season, there's going to be a big summer of recruitment lying ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there was going to be anyway, whether Jason Wilcox was still in place or not. I think it would be a dereliction of duty if 6 weeks ago, given that everyone saw it as kind of inevitable from that point, if they didn't do anything, you would hope they would have been looking at targets. But yeah, I mean, I personally, I mean, I've seen people saying we should play hardball. There's no point. Man United aren't anything to do with us. They're not in the same division. They more than likely won't be next year. So, and even if we did make it into the Premier League, we wouldn't really be competing with Man United. So I can see why Newcastle have dug their heels in over the guy that they were trying to poach from them. But I don't think there's any point. I think we've got to look after ourselves, which basically means screwing them for as much money as possible and getting it done and moving on, because it's happening. There's no point really in us paying Jason Wilcox for 12 months to sit on his hands. So, just get on with it, get it sorted quickly, and then we don't have to worry about it with the Athletic writing 40 articles that all said the same thing. Just get it done, move him on, and because it's Man United, just the noise in the media will be massive, and I would just, for everyone's sanity, just get it done as soon as possible. And if that means getting him out the door quickly, then do that.
So be it. Yeah, I guess, Alfie, final question on this is what happens next. I assume there'll be some negotiations going on behind the scenes. The club actually haven't said anything yet. Will they have to confirm that he has resigned at some point?
Yeah, well, they'll have to at some point, won't they? Maybe we'll see or hear something tomorrow. I'm going into the training ground tomorrow for an interview with a player, so maybe I'll be able to hear something then. It's a not needed reminder, unfortunately, that for clubs like Southampton, despite the great history and the standing they should have in the game, that unfortunately the top six do rule the roost. And you've seen it the last sort of 10 years I've been following Southampton. Players come and go, managers come and go, and even staff now. So we had Joe Shields come in from Man City, brought 3 or 4 players with him, and then 3 months later decided he was off to go to Chelsea. So there's obviously
rip-roaring success that's been.
But you don't expect any loyalty in the game or anything like that, do you? But it's just a not needed reminder that there is a pecking order, unfortunately. But yeah, like Glenn said, that it would be due diligence to have a list of available people that you can get in. You just need to make sure they hit the ground running in the summer, because I think we've seen the finances, and either way, whether in the Premier League or the Championship, it's not going to be easy to craft a team that can compete in the Premier League or craft a team that can go up from the Championship the second time of asking. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting summer ahead. It was going to be anyway.
As long as we don't end up with Rasmus Ankersen doing the job, because then we are in trouble.
Let's talk about some football, shall we? I mean, yesterday was seemingly the final blow for our slim hopes of automatic promotion, that 3-2 defeat at Portman Road, rounding off a miserable Easter weekend, really. Glenn, I'm going to start with you tonight. I mean, the talking point before the game was biggest game of the season, and yet our player of the season so far was dropped to the bench. Some strange one with Kyle Walker-Peters.
Well, the only thing I could think of was that he was feeling the effects of playing his first game for a while on Friday. I hope that it wasn't just because he made he lost the man that scored the equalising goal, because if you're going to get dropped for giving a goal away, then half our players will never play again, especially after last night. So it was that was the headline news. It was a very strange selection on the face of it for what was a must-win game, biggest game of the season, as Alfie said. So it was a slightly strange sort of team selection. It was basically what we sent out against West Brom with in that away game there, with Jack Stevens sort of floating around from left back. And you have to say that for the first half, certainly it worked superbly. I thought, Ipswich got the early goal from their first attack, really. Might not have happened if the best right back in the Championship had been on the pitch, but he wasn't. The guy
Did the keeper have done better as well, do you think?
Yes.
Near post?
Dived under it. I mean, it's a hell of a shot, but he's dived under it, really, if you look at it. So I think I don't think it's the worst goal we let in yesterday, but I think he should have done better, and he will think he should have done better as well. It was a hell of a shot, but I mean, in the build up from that, you saw Harwood Bellis telling Bree to get out there, and by the time he did it, it was too late. So that was 1-0. Great response straight away with Che Adams equalising. Good work by Armstrong, I think, Adam Armstrong, and a rebo. So that was nice. And then, brilliant goal to go 2-1 up with Stuart Armstrong's pass to Adam Armstrong. And at that point, it really looked like men against boys. We looked so much better than them, so much stronger. Fraser had the chance just before half time that he screwed wide. That really would have put a fair reflection on that first half, and maybe been the end of the game. But 2-1 at half time. Came out the second half, had another couple of chances. Flynn Downs managed to mess up a 3v2 break, played the wrong pass, in my opinion, to Fraser rather than Adam Armstrong. Bednarek had a header saved, but on the hour mark, it all kind of changed. We seemed to step off the gas a little bit. Ipswich made their 3 subs with the injury to Bednarek, which seemed to disrupt things, and we never quite got it back. Another goal down our right hand side, where the best right back in the Championship wasn't. I think it was one of the subs scored, and that was the goal that I thought Bazunu should have done better with. He just seemed to the dive didn't go anywhere. He just seemed to collapse on the ground. The ball went in the middle of the goal, basically. So that was poor. I know it went through a player, but he's got to be saving that. He's got to be getting something on it, and he got nowhere near it. That's the thing I can't understand. It just beats him so easily. I don't think I've ever sworn as much at conceding a goal as I did on that particular one. It's just dreadful, and it was so typical. And then Russell Martin kind of froze, I thought, and the substitutions weren't great. I thought taking Che Adams off was madness because he was having a good game. It was a physical game. He was getting kicked to hell by the centre halves. Referee wasn't doing anything about it. And eventually we end up with a very lightweight front three, which I think we're going to talk about later on. And we never really got a grip in the game again. We don't think we had another shot after that. And Breeze sending off. Yeah, I guess we're going to talk about Michael Salisbury later.
Your friend.
Let's just say an inconsistent referee. Let's put it that way for now. And then we didn't adapt to having 10 players. We kind of played without a right back. Flynn Downs kind of dropped in a little bit, and the goal came down the right hand side, down our right hand side yet again. And Sarmiento, obviously, when he fell over, someone should have got to him, but no one did, and he's poked it into the corner past another pretty questionable slow motion dive. So it's it's a disaster basically, and it was a horrible last 25 minutes, and we went from being a team that looked brilliant really for the first sort of 60-65, but ultimately if you're going to put in half an hour of rubbish at the end, you're not going to win many games, and that's the end of that as far as automatic promotion is concerned, I think. And now it's just a case of keeping things ticking over and try and find a bit of form before the end of the season, which will almost inevitably, I think we need about 5 points to be confirmed in the playoffs. And then it's as Benjamin Bloom was saying last week, then it's playoff football and see what happens. Cup football.
You kind of called it on Sunday night, I think, Alfie, when we were talking about the potential lineup, and you were saying that Bednarek was probably going to come back in and we would play with Bednarek, Harwood-Bellis and Stevens. I don't know if we thought Bree as well, but you kind of got that right, and it almost worked. He was quite bullish about the team selection afterwards, and as we said, it almost paid off, but not quite.
Yeah, I did think that was the most obvious team selection available. I think everybody here, if you'd asked them, would have said the same thing, that all three of the centre-backs would have come in for the game. Obviously, we wouldn't have predicted Carl Walker-Peters to be dropped. And I think the thing that's really surprised me the most about Carl Walker-Peters being dropped is that, when given the chance to explain it afterwards, he literally did just say that he didn't have his best game on Friday. And all right, he caveated it with he hasn't played a lot recently because of injury. But the main reason that was pretty obvious for me was that he didn't play well on Friday. And I just think, I just don't think that justifies dropping one of the best players in the league because they didn't get to a header in the box. Admittedly, a poor goal. I mean, how many players have had poor games and still kept their place? Che Adams being one. And I'm not saying that Che Adams shouldn't have kept his place. He should have. But that's, you see the working out there. So that was, for me, a bizarre one. I didn't agree with that one. I still don't. But other than that, like Glenn's already said, the first 60 minutes were very good. They should have been away. Fraser before half-time. Fraser had a couple after the break as well. I think even going right into the last minute when they actually responded quite well to the leveller, David Brooks could have put Saints ahead as well. So, in terms of a performance, it was by no means a disaster, but it's just not quite good enough again. And the result is a disaster, unfortunately. And I was very surprised by Russell Martin after the match. He wasn't very happy with what he perceived to be a negative line of questioning. And I didn't think that it was that negative, but I can understand where he's coming from. But unfortunately, it's brilliant being, buzzing with the performance and being proud of your players. But right now, the business end of the season, you need results, and they've just fallen a little bit short a couple of times in a row, and it's going to cost them. So I think I spoke on the Sunday as well about needing that steeliness, and sort of the teams that go on to win playoffs are the teams that keep it really tight at the back. And like Glenn said there, they've got 8 games to work out how they get back to that, because we've seen they can do it this season. They've just got to get back to that before those massive games.
And I think it's 51 goals that we've conceded now. I mean, it's clear that the problem's at the back. Steve, you were there yesterday. What was your take on the game? We'll get onto the red card in a moment. But after such a great, 65 minutes maybe, where did it all start to go wrong for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd kind of echo what Glenn and Alfie have said, really, in that, first hour was excellent, I thought. The only frustration was that we weren't further clear, and really the game should have been dead and buried. After 55, 60 minutes, we had 2 or 3 really good countering opportunities in the second half where players made the wrong decisions. Couple as well where we got into good wide positions and the ball across was defended well, and that's ultimately been the difference between the two teams. They defended their box in sort of real pressure situations quite well, kind of when they were desperate. And we stood around watching when we were in similar situation, which is frustrating given how many defenders we had in the side at that point. So yeah, I mean, the Bednarek injury, I think, was the kind of turning point. Obviously, it didn't force him off, but it just seemed to prompt so much confusion for about 3 or 4 minutes, and it felt like it went on forever. Like he was down on the ground for a good 2 or 3 minutes before even the Saints physio staff came on to have a look at him, and then when he came back, he was kind of hobbling around and not quite sure whether he was going to be able to carry on, and then he kind of seemed to just get over it and put in one really good challenge to stop a break down their right flank, and all of a sudden he was fine again. So it was all a little bit odd, but I think we just lost the sort of pace and carry of the game at that point. Ipswich have made a triple sub, brought on 3 players who all had an impact. The right back basically shut up shop. Against Fraser, there wasn't as much coming down there anymore. Broadhead, wasn't it, that got the equaliser? I mean, he'd been on the pitch 5 minutes before he scored, and yeah, so their subs had impact, and that was obviously one of the key things that we we've brought up a lot of times on here over the course of the season, whereby subs have come on and changed the game and had an impact. Whereas, in the last couple of games, the subs that have been made have noticeably weakened us, unfortunately. Stu Armstrong and Joe Aribo both seem to kind of be completely spent at exactly the same time, which then just suddenly gave control of the midfield back. I completely agree with Glenn that taking Adams off was madness. Same as it was on Friday. I mean, as I said after the Middlesbrough game, that even though Adams missed those two chances, just him being in that position and making the runs that he was making gave us a structure. And that was exactly the same last night, where there was a central focal point, even though we obviously weren't lumping stuff long to him, but he was there as an outlet and he occupied at least one of the centre-backs, if not both of them. So taking him off and putting Armstrong through the middle, where we know he's not as comfortable there. And it threw us completely, reduced us to kind of basically hoping for counter-attacks, but we never then kind of had quite enough confidence or energy to kind of go full throttle on them, which meant that anything we did have was a little bit easy to defend. I mean, Brooks came on and just didn't quite look fit. Adozie tried a bit, but he was up against the fullback who'd come on and actually played really well. He was a lot better than Tuanzebe, who he replaced. So frustrating that having worked so hard for that hour and played really well. If we had carried it on, you would probably make a strong argument that it was best performance of the season. But unfortunately, the way it's ended and that drop off meant that it turned into a bit of a disaster. Really,
there are some themes.
Sorry, mine. Just being in the ground and just feeling the atmosphere. Obviously, it was a massive occasion. I mean, it was just a really nice ground. It was a brilliant atmosphere before the game. But Saints had the Ipswich players and the fans exactly where they needed them when they took that lead. And the atmosphere was getting a little bit frustrated. It was quieting down. But the second that Ipswich started scoring the goals again, started having the chances, you could just feel that it was palpable. And they willed them on a little bit there. But I just think you had to just take advantage of that. You had them exactly where you needed them.
That's the worry for me, just ahead of the playoffs and those big games. Glenn, there are some themes that are developing. I know you talked about Stu Armstrong on Friday and leaving him on a little bit too long.
Yeah.
So is it like the in-game management we talked about, like Bednarek and his injury and maybe not reacting to that quickly enough? And then I think, as you alluded to earlier, we finished the game with Brooks, Armstrong, and Adozie up front, and it's a bit weak at times.
Yeah, I mean, Shay Adams coming off, it seems like it's preordained. It seems like 60 minutes he's going to come off, 65 minutes he's going to come off, regardless of the game situation. Now, if anyone should be coming off every game after 65, 70 minutes, it's Stuart Armstrong, because he can't play 90 minutes at the same pace and keep going. And you look at it yesterday, Joe Aribo is another one who's not had much football, and he was left on for 80 odd minutes. David Brooks has had. So we've had a few issues. I know Brooks was only a sub yesterday, and we've got a few issues with fitness. But yeah, I mean the forward line at the end. I mean, I just thought Ipswich have a very physical defence. The guy that Steve mentioned who came on at right back, he was another big unit, big strong defender. They had a guy come on in midfield who trashed through the back of Stuart Armstrong, another one that the referee thought was, that's no mind, we'll let that one go. And even taking Ryan Fraser off takes, even though he's only 5'5" or whatever he is, even that takes away a bit of the physicality in the team. But taking Adams off, he's the one that was sort of carrying the fight, as Steve said. He occupies the one if not two centre halves, and he. Regardless of his misses against Middlesbrough, he is our best centre forward, because the choice is him or Sekou Mara or Adam Armstrong out of position, basically. So, Adams has to play, and when we take him off, we have no one there. I mean, it might it's pretty. You might think it's slim pickings, but he's the best of that particular bunch, and And yeah, taking him off, I just thought it surrendered the initiative really, and made it a lot easier for Ipswich to get more of a foothold in the game, because we weren't giving them as much to worry about. I mean, this is my problem with the Walker Peters thing as well, because Leif Davis at left back, who had a hand in all of the goals, he's basically a left winger who's stationed at left back, and you've got to force him back the other way because he can't defend. And Walker Peters basically would have done that much more than James Bree did, because I mean, I think James Bree is kind of average. He's an okay defender, but he's not great going forward. So he's not going to send the Ipswich fullback the other way. So I just thought it was a poor day for Russell Martin, which and I think he probably knows that. And which is probably why he gets a bit spiky and defensive in the interview afterwards.
Yeah, he thought we were brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, you stop the game at an hour, and he's right.
We could say that quite a few times this season.
Yeah, so he could reasonably justify that his selection worked, but the second selection, the one you have to make halfway through the second half, when the game changes and the opposition do something, that didn't work. And and that's the thing he's got to. He's got to get right. We had that phase where we were doing well late in games, and it was usually the likes of Ryan Fraser, Charlie Alcaraz, people like that coming on that that made a difference. And some players are more suited to be impact subs than others. I mean, we had a bit at the start of the season where Edozie started games and Fraser came on a sub, and that seemed to be a better way round than the way it worked yesterday. Because Edozie, though he tried, he didn't really do much. So I think, I think there are a number of issues with the way the game was managed in the second half, both in using our own resources and the response to what Ipswich did.
Alfie, I just want to ask you about the red cards. I don't know, can we have too many complaints about that? You'd have seen the replays, I guess, at the time.
No, we didn't actually have replays at the time, in fairness. There was no screens or anything like that. I mean, it's 50-50 in it at the end of the day. So people will say the letter of the law, but I mean, I think the argument against it is obviously Taylor Howard-Bellis is coming across and could potentially get there, but he's pulled him down and he's thrown goal. Looks like the last man maybe from there for years. So I don't think you can have too many complaints. Russell Martin was asked, was he going to appeal the decision at all? And he had no answer for that either. So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Is that the point though, when you bring on a right back, Steve? When your right back gets sent off and you got the league's best right back on the bench?
Yeah, I think all three windows.
We'd already used our three sub windows.
Wasted it. Steve,
it does beg the question, doesn't it? It does beg the question. I mean, if Kyle can't even get into the starting team, right? Fair enough, you have a decision. But for him to not even come on in the game, that is puzzling. Bring him on.
Some positives though, Steve. Let's just finish on the goals. I mean, a great goal from Adam Armstrong. That pass from Stu Armstrong was sublime. That was
ridiculous. That absolutely ridiculous.
Had we won, that would have been on all the social media today. They'd have been sharing that for days.
Yeah, inject it into my veins and all that. That was ridiculous, and that was kind of the sort of illustration of what Stu Armstrong is really good at, because he shrugged off at least one challenge, maybe two, on that run from inside our own half, and still having sprinted for 20-25 yards, still had the presence of mind and the vision to see that diagonal pass that basically cut out three of the four Ipswich defenders, and more or less gave Adam Armstrong kind of as much of a tap in as you could expect from sort of 15 yards out. Exceptional bit of play. I mean, there were opportunities to do it, to kind of do it again, but unfortunately that one in the second half fell to Flynn Downs, and I don't think as good as Flynn Downs is at what he does, he's not the sort of ball playing creative number 10 that we're kind of always desperately searching for.
I think we'll save player of the week until after the weekend, Glenn. But just like Joe Aribo, there were a few sort of standouts, weren't there? He had a decent game yesterday until he went off.
Yeah, if you draw a line at 65 minutes or 60 minutes, there were some superb performances in that part of the game. Yeah, I thought Joe Aribo was exceptional in the first half. He's just got a calmness about him, and a strength about him as well to hold players off, and he always seems to play the right pass. Stuart Armstrong was excellent in that first hour. Really, really good. I thought Wee Man did well down the left as well. But, just lacking the end product, unfortunately, yesterday. So, you can't. And Jack Stevens was excellent. It has to be said for all the disruption that it's caused to the defence that was doing perfectly well. He is, he does play that role, pretty well, turning up in midfield to receive the ball to give us an extra passing outlet. But to me, it's still trying to be too clever. But I thought he was really, really good in that first half, and he actually, while still playing left back, there was one, I think, our last chance in the game deep into the second half. He was heavily involved in that, teeing it up for Adam Armstrong, who unfortunately hit the keeper with it. So there were some good performances out there, but you're really searching for positives, and they're all well and good. But the bottom line is the performance doesn't really matter. In that, Russell Martin is a manager who makes a big deal about performances. He sometimes I think we could lose 4-0, but if we adhere to his principles, he'd go, we played well.
We were brave.
We played well. And the bottom line is we've thrown away another game where we were winning. And, like we threw away 2 points against Middlesbrough when we were winning. And that, unfortunately, is what's going to be remembered ultimately when people look at the list of results at the end of the season. They're not going to remember how well we played in the first 65 minutes of any game. You're just going to look at the result at the end and did we get 1 point? Did we get 3? Did we get none? And, I think there needs to be a little bit more focus on that sometimes.
Well, there are 8 games to go. The first of those is Blackburn away on Saturday. Now, it was a 4-0 win back in December. Charlie Alcaraz with the worst penalty I think I've ever seen in my life. Steve, Blackburn are 17th, but, when you look at the results, they smashed Sunderland yesterday. They gave Ipswich a decent game on Good Friday. So maybe the league table not really reflecting some of their performances. They seem to have got a lot of draws recently.
Not sure. I think the Sunderland result is the misnomer in that Sunderland are especially bad, and they're an absolute train wreck. And Blackburn are also bad, but they have a goal scorer.
A different sort of bad.
Yes. John Eustace took over from John Dale Thomason about 2 months ago now. Yesterday was his first win. So 1 win in 11, and they've played a lot of the sort of middly to not very good teams in that run as well. They've been on the slide, and in January they were, I think, 16-1 to go down at the point where their sort of bad run started, and sort of Thomason was sort of making noises about not being happy at not being able to sign anybody, and they obviously sold Adam Wharton to Palace, who was their sort of next big hope coming through their academy. And they look like a team in freefall, but maybe that win yesterday gives them enough, just about enough, to keep themselves above the water, because let's be honest, there's a lot of really bad teams in the bottom half of this division this season.
Does the result really matter, Alfie? Is the pressure off a little bit now? Because
no, not at all. Every result matters, and at the end of the day, Russell Martin is still of the belief that if they win 8 games to end the season, there's a chance. So I don't think you can just say the result doesn't matter, because you need to keep form, you need to keep confidence, you need to hopefully get scored some goals, sort the defence out. Hopefully the goalkeeper will have a good game and feel a bit happier about himself if he keeps his place. That is. So no, I don't think you can just say that any game at this point doesn't matter, or the pressure's off. The pressure is very much on them to deliver. It's going to be an interesting place to go. But we say it every week, but it's quite funny that they've been absolutely crap for 10 games, haven't got a result, and then they go and smash somebody 2 days before.
We
say every game, but interesting.
Is it a chance to put things right, Glenn, I suppose, after a really terrible weekend?
Of course it is.
17th in the league, and we're going to need that momentum if it is to be the playoffs. Then we don't want to go into it just like limping in, do we?
Well, they've still got to believe they've got a chance of winning these 8 games. I don't know. You get these computers that come up with a percentage chance of finishing in whatever league position. I'd love to know what our percentage chances of finishing first or second. Not very high, I would suspect. So 24 points. If we can get that, they have to go out there believing that it's possible, and I think they will. I mean, we should have too much for Blackburn, but Blackburn would have been looking at our last couple of results and thinking they could be good for at least a point. With the boost they had last week with the win. So there's a lot riding on it, as Alfie says. Same as with every game, but we've got to look at it as not. We have to start winning games again. Be it to have a very, very, very last chance saloon run at finishing second, or to get something going before the end of the season, which is more likely. But we do have a lot to play for still, and it's not like the season's been a complete and utter failure. If we finish in the playoffs, there's still a massive chance to get into the Premier League. So it's just 3 games, and we're all a bit less optimistic about our chances now. But it's still there to play for, and every game is important, and we just got to extend it as long as we can. We got to keep it going, try and win some games, and try and extend the chance of finishing in the top 2 for as long as we possibly can.
I didn't have you down as a percentage table follower, Glenn.
I'm not. That's why I've got no idea what it's called.
the supercomputer that is basically just an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah. So what are we? 0% for first and about 1.5%.
It's a very round number, that's for sure now.
It's going to be a very different game to that one back in December, though, Steve, I'd imagine. Like you say, different manager as well. I've still got the league's top scorer as well, so it'd be interesting to see how they handle that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where it does genuinely seem as if you keep Smodic quiet, then you'll generally have a more than good chance of winning the game. Because I don't think anybody else that they've got has got more than 4 or 5. It's been really a sort of proper barren season for them, where they have singularly relied on one player to bail them out of the mess. I mean, it's pretty mad to think that when we played them before Christmas, back end of last year, they were just outside the playoffs. I think they were a point outside the playoffs, and now look at them. It's a bit weird, but it's also because I don't think he actually plays as a sort of central striker. I think he plays kind of just off, and he floats around a little bit. So that may be one of those scenarios where you might persist with the 3 central defenders and have Stevens as a sort of floating defender, tracking Smodic wherever he goes, and kind of then have someone kind of picking up the pieces and sort of filling in the gaps. But I mean, maybe I'm kind of doing a Russell Martin and overthinking it. And maybe we just go in and put our best team out and go and win because we're a better team.
That'd be good.
Put our best team out.
That'd be a novel concept, wouldn't it?
Do you remember what else happened? Do you remember what else happened in the last game against Blackburn? Do you remember that guy got sent off for booting
the red card?
Oh, yeah.
What was the red card? I can't remember the red card.
You just booted the ball.
He'd already been booked, and then it was only 1-0 at the time, and it ended 4-0. But it was about 5 minutes into the second half. He got a nothing free kick given against him, and just toe punted the ball into the northern end or whatever, and got a second yellow card. So and then we beat him 4-0. So it wasn't the brightest bit of play. I can't remember his name. Let's hope he does something equally stupid on Saturday if he's playing.
I've just had a look at their team from last game, Steve. Who do you think the number 9 is? Because you're right, Sammy plays off the front.
Sam Gallagher?
Is Sam Gallagher fit?
Gallagher, correct. Yeah, he
No
started
way.
last time, so there you go.
Let's do some score predictions then. Alfie, do you want to start? Kick us off with the score predictions for this. Are we going to bounce back and get a decent win?
Did anybody get 3-2? I mean, Steve wasn't far off.
I was right up until the 97th minute.
Yeah.
There was lots of 2
good
goals,
point.
wasn't there?
I honestly don't know. I don't know what the response is going to be because, as I said, I think Russell Martin was clearly really frustrated after the game, and I don't know what the dressing room was like. But he said that they did a lot of the talking themselves. He didn't really have to say much. So I think there's going to be a real feeling of disappointment, and like I say, it just has to be one that they can channel and put it right. I'm going to go confident. I'm going to say they're going to win 2-1.
2-1. Okay, Glenn.
In a bizarre rebound from the last few games, I'm going to go for a 2-0 win.
You said that every week, a bizarre rebound.
And a clean sheet. I know. I never get it right. It doesn't matter. I don't know why you asked me. It's a waste of time.
Need the supercomputer. Steve?
Yeah, I mean, bold approach going for a clean sheet.
Or stupid.
Well, delete is applicable. Potato. Yeah, I mean, clean sheet is probably off the table again. But I think their defense isn't great. It's certainly not even as good as Ipswich is, and Ipswich's defense isn't very good. If you look at the goals against column, I think they might even have conceded more than we have, Ipswich. It's just that they've scored quite a lot more. So yeah, I think we'll win, but it's going to be not to nil. So 3-1.
3-1. Okay. Well, if you are watching live, don't forget to stick your score predictions in the comments. And we're going to be back on Sunday night at the usual time to review that game and look ahead to Coventry, which doesn't sound very interesting, but you never know. We'll see what happens at the weekend. That's pretty much it for this special midweek edition of the podcast. Don't forget you can follow Total Saints Podcast on all the social media platforms. We are at Total Saints Pod. You can get in touch via the DMs, or you can drop us an email via the website if there's something you'd like to share. And do make sure you check out the merch store as well, which is shop.totalsaints.co.uk. We're also on Patreon, as I mentioned at the start. That's where you can support the podcast with a monthly contribution. You visit patreon.com/Total Saints Podcast to find out more. There are 4 tiers there, ranging from £5 to £20 per month, and each of the tiers comes with different perks, including weekly shout outs for all the patrons who are in our Francis Benali and our Mick Shannon tier. So thanks to Dave Melton, Mark Atkins, Andy Hollis, Anthony Thompson, Saints in Exile, Gavin Ford, James Harron, Nicky Nicholson, Southampton NY, Drew Dyer, James Kibbe, and Mike E, who are in our Francis Benali tier, and also to Colt Baker, Dave Ernsberger, Ed Busy, Nick Higston, Phil Cook, Nick Reed, Paul Stewart, Phil Horstrop, Matt Hall, and Mark Littlewood, who are in our Mick Shannon tier. Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Alfie. Thank you to Glenn. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And don't forget, we'll see you on Sunday evening at 7:15 for the next live stream.